What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So today we're going to be discussing the Nintendo situation that's absolutely out of control, and this has to do with a ROM hosting site, YouTubers, and even a person named Bowser. Yeah, it looks like Nintendo has been pretty busy in the courtroom. Go figure, we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Joseph Staten and his next project, which he's revealed, and it's not exactly with a company you would have expected. And we'll also be talking about a new game that's been announced from WB after the massive success of Hogwarts Legacy. Looks like there's another game coming from that Harry Potter universe. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. We're heading towards 700,000 subscribers here. And we're going to start today with Sega and an update around that acquisition story with them and Rovio, as it does appear they are indeed closing the deal, but for a bit less than we had mentioned before, coming in roughly at $1 billion as reported by the Wall Street Journal. We can see this from Sega, who has now announced that they are acquiring the Angry Birds maker for $776 million. You're only off by, $250 million. Not that much money, but this from the president and CEO of Sega, Sami Haruki Satomi, says, "I feel blessed to be able to announce such a transaction with Rovio, a company that owns Angry Birds, which is loved across the world and home to many skilled employees that support the company's industry, leading mobile game development and operating capabilities." So once again, while Angry Birds obviously is something that has a high valuation and probably helped to get this deal to that point, I think Sega is thinking beyond that with their intellectual properties and Rovio's know-how for creating these mobile experiences and monetization practices that I'm sure can be wound into some of these super games that they're making, which are really, to me, just live service titles. It does at least make sense, but we'll see how all of this continues to evolve as we go along and what plans Sega has for Rovio now that, well, they're looking to purchase that. That deal still needs to close. I think that'll be done by the end of this year, at least is what they're alluding to. So we'll see. But yeah, I think Sega has big plans here after this acquisition of Rovio. Also, it looks like Bend Studio has some stuff in the works right now, which we expected, as we've heard that they're at least working on something new. But take a look at this posted up over on Twitter from the Bend Studio account, just saying Monday with the PlayStation Studios and the Bend Studio pen, almost like they're, obviously this is set up for a picture, but kind of talk about, hey, we are working on something new. I am pretty curious the direction that Bend Studio takes here after Days Gone, and clearly we're all expecting at this point a PlayStation showcase. It's been a while, like what, a year and a half now. Remember the last showcase had Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine in there. Those are definitely the big time announcements, and we're all kind of figuring out, okay, what's Sony going to be ready to show here? I still think it's a good idea to show something that could be years off from a Bend Studio that is a studio that, after Days Gone, there was a lot of uncertainty around what they would do next. They pitched, apparently, Days Gone 2. Sony wasn't that interested, and now I guess they're working on a new intellectual property, so again, I'm curious what they come up with, and it wouldn't be a bad idea to at least give us a sneak peek maybe at a showcase that is rumored to be happening in May. So we'll look towards that time to see maybe what Bend Studio has cooking up. Oh, and for all of you Nintendo Switch Online members out there, there is a new trial game that will be available soon, which we can see this posted up by Nintendo, saying Nintendo Switch Online members from April 20th at 10 a.m. Pacific to April 26th, you can download and try the full Star Wars Republic Commando game at no additional cost, and they will also have the price of that game marked down 50%. So if you're playing it here and you enjoy it, you can buy it at a fairly steep discount. And Republic Commando is a good game. I mean, it's going back to the original Xbox and the PC, and I really liked it there. And this port, there have been some issues with Aspire ports, we'll say, looking at things like KOTOR, but in this case, it was pretty good, and I do enjoy Republic Commando quite a bit, mostly because it gives you a different viewpoint. At the time, it was all about having lightsabers and Jedi versus Sith and all of this, but here, it was just kind of neat to see it from a different perspective with that first-person shooter style. So, hey, definitely worth a download. It's not even a large file size or anything, just see what you think of what I would deem a classic from that Xbox generation. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo being very busy in the courtroom, doing takedowns of videos and even having people pay them for the rest of their life. There's a lot to look at here, though. First, we can see this posted up by Games Industry, who had the initial report on this one, saying Nintendo wins court battle against site used to pirate its games. This is DStorage. This story, by the way, goes back to 2018. And the idea here is Nintendo noticed that there were Switch games being hosted here on this file sharing platform. And they didn't like that, clearly, so they send cease and desist, takedown notices, all these things to DStorage, who kicked back saying, no, or just ignored it outright. And then what does Nintendo do? Well, obviously they start suing. That's kind of their MO. So they did at least send notice to remove these things, but in that case, for the file hosting website, they did not want to comply. And this is the second appeal to my understanding, which we can see this from Games Industry, saying the platform holder had previously demanded DStorage take down any unauthorized Nintendo games stored on its site. When this was not done, the company took legal action, with the Paris Judicial Court giving the same verdict on May 2021, now ordered to pay out about $480,000 to Nintendo as compensation, and they also want them to cover their legal fees, which is just about $30,000. Now, DStorage can appeal again, but they've lost the last 2 appeals, so it's just, are you going to rack up more legal fees? We'll see on that one. But Nintendo currently is declaring victory and saying that this is an incredible precedent for anti-piracy measures in the future, basically touting what Nintendo does, which is set examples for future cases and having people look at that and go, you know, maybe I won't host those Switch games that I just dumped using my hacked Switch online so I can avoid Nintendo getting sue happy in the courts. We also had news break that Gary Bowser, who's part of Team Executor, which, you know, Team Executor with the Switch, they were selling basically ways to circumvent security on the system so you can modify, hack, and do all kinds of stuff to it, which Nintendo obviously cracking down as much as they can around mods for games and the system. That was more of a for-profit thing, as they're selling these pretty frequently. Well, Nintendo got to him. Gary Bowser was sentenced to prison for 40 months, but now it appears they're getting out early for good behavior. But it doesn't really end there, as there's $10 million that they still need to pay back to Nintendo. So what happens here? So you can see this posted up by Nintendo Everything, who says, according to Bowser himself, Nintendo can take 25 to 30% of his income for the rest of his working life. This actually started when he was in prison, got a job there, however, because of the low pay that there at the Federal Detention Center, paid back $175. So Nintendo will be a part of, I guess, their life going forward, indefinitely, trying to pay down the $10 million through their pay stubs, which 25 to 30% is probably going to take a couple lifetimes. But the story that really blew up online had to do with Point Crow and modifications for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild on YouTube, which you can see this posted up over on Twitter, as Point Crow has been kind of chronicling this entire situation with Nintendo, who has mostly been going around striking, blocking, and copyright claiming all these different videos that seem to have to do with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Not all modifications, by the way. In some cases, just challenges, essentially playing the game with rules that you've made up and you're following, so not tampering with the code at all. But we can again see this posted up where it's to the point now where they have a spreadsheet. So just put a video out going over the takedowns that Nintendo America has issued on my YouTube channel. Please go give it a watch. It's incredibly important. But when you get to a position where you're making spreadsheets for which ones they've claimed, blocked, taken down, and then they also post up the copyright takedown notice, different videos, and it's gotten to a position where they now have 2 strikes on their channel, which one more strike basically just pulls the entire channel down. To me, that's Nintendo, because the way they've done it, sending a message like, we can take your channel down if we want to, but we're now to this tipping point and it's your move, essentially. You can also see Croton here says Nintendo just nuked 10 of my streams and 2 of my videos off the face of the platform, even saying one was just that Zelda challenge run. Now, here's the situation, which I will leave a link to the Point Crow video going over Nintendo taking down their videos, explanation, all this, diving into Nintendo's own kind of their guidelines for video creation. Nintendo doesn't really follow any of that anyway. We know this at this. I mean, part of it legitimately says you can't show the game or play it or any of that. There has to be, as they say, like serious transformative aspects to it, which just commentary to me should be enough for that. but Nintendo leaves it vague enough where they can go one way or the other. But it wasn't even that long ago that Nintendo made creators have to submit videos to them so that they could take some of your YouTube revenue. It was, I think, the beginning of the Switch, like end of 2016, early 2017, where they just stopped doing that completely. It was like the Nintendo Creators Club. Think about that for like that. People wonder why I say Nintendo has been fairly petty, and it's because of this kind of stuff. And I'm gonna say now, stories that have never been told. Nintendo doesn't mess around, and they remember stuff, and they certainly pursue things for a long time. Now, I do want to point out one part of this story that I did notice, and it has to do with this modification for multiplayer that Point Crow basically had a bounty out for, a reward, $10,000. If you can make this mod that I can play and stream and all this, and I guess release even, then you get the $10,000 prize. Nintendo in particular, interestingly enough, one, they go after mods. They don't like modifications of their games. But two, once they start seeing money getting involved, then they start coming around and go, okay, what's happening here? How are you monetizing our intellectual property in this way? And is it something that we can take down or get a piece of? Seriously. So that's where we are with Nintendo. But I will say this, anyone out there who's thinking about going against them, Nintendo has time, and they will pursue stuff in the courtroom for the sole purpose of just being right. And also, everything that goes on with copyrights and stuff, all that law, DMCA in the US, it does also kind of push them in the direction of pursuing this to be right. So it's a sticky situation here with Nintendo because I think people still see them as the company that gives them things like The Legend of Zelda, Mario, Kirby, but in the background, it's a bunch of suits who, yes, are trying to make the most money possible, and at times it comes out here in places like the courtroom. So I'm not really sure how much further this is going to go exactly without Nintendo really going for it, either taking down a channel or sending orders for courtroom stuff, but I guess we'll see. Next up, let's talk about Joseph Staten and his new project, and also his new job, his new company that I'll be working with. And that's Netflix. Seriously, take a look here. This was Joseph Staten's own announcement on Twitter, where he says, so today I'm thrilled to announce that I've joined Netflix Games as creative director for a brand new AAA multi-platform game, an original intellectual property. Let's go. Okay, so Joseph Staten, obviously, creative director over with Halo. Been there since the beginning of the Bungie days, all right? Heads over to 343 to get Halo Infinite back on track, and to his credit, he got it out the door. It released. He had to make some decisions of like, hey, there's no split screen co-op, which was frustrating, but the game did come out. It functioned. It just was missing a lot of content that people were hoping for, and it's kind of been in that situation ever since it released. It just feels like it's always one step behind. But he did what he was supposed to do. He went back to Xbox Game Publishing, and then he left that. And it seems like right away, he heads to Netflix. Now, it's interesting because Netflix, they have done some gaming stuff, but they haven't been seen as this behemoth in the gaming industry yet. And I feel like they can do it specifically with enough money, obviously, if they are willing to actually invest. If you start pulling talent like Joseph Staten and say, hey, we want a new AAA intellectual property, you can pick your team. We just want it to be good. Sure, if they can poach talent this way, then yeah, they can come up with games that they publish and become large in the gaming industry. And that's kind of what it looks like Netflix is doing. Because of how large gaming in general has become, yeah, it's starting to eclipse things like movies, TV. Gaming is right there. So Netflix, who is more of the entertainment side and obviously has a very strong foothold when it comes to the subscription service, why wouldn't they start trying to produce larger games that would get them a much larger role in the gaming industry, which get big money-making opportunities here if Netflix can pull it off. So my only hope is that they give Joseph Staten the time and the resources because, yeah, he's proven he can make some really cool stuff. And I'm curious if we see any more announcements like this of top-level talent from Microsoft, Sony, or even Nintendo jumping ship to what I assume to be some pretty good paydays over at Netflix. I guess we'll see. Next up, let's talk about another game that WB has announced in the Harry Potter universe. And based on what I've seen with Hogwarts Legacy, while I don't think it's going to be that level in terms of overall success, I think this could actually do pretty well, which here's the landing page that they announced. It's for Harry Potter Quidditch Champions. Now, if you've played Hogwarts Legacy, you know there's no Quidditch in the game. They have I guess an explanation in the story, but it was definitely something you felt like it was missing the way they talked about it, and it could have been a really cool element to it. Kind of looks like they spun it off into its own thing, and I guess in the world of live service titles, yeah, it makes some sense there. But there are upcoming playtests, so you can sign up to register for it over on that website. So if you're curious, I guess go ahead and do that. They also have a frequently asked questions page that is up that goes over some of the general stuff people would want to know. Like, I don't know, what is Harry Potter Quidditch Champions? They describe it as a fast-paced, competitive multiplayer game featuring the world's most iconic magical sport. They go over who's publishing, obviously Warner Bros., who's developing. This is Unbroken Studios. Is it a standalone experience? It is, so you're going to be able to play this without needing, say, Hogwarts Legacy or anything else around it. And they don't have any set date for it to be coming out, anything like that. It seems like they're going to be going through a couple of beta or alpha periods before they're prepared to launch. And currently that's set up for PC, and they say consoles, but they have not decided or named any yet. They also talk a lot about multiplayer and playing with your friends, customization. So yeah, it's gonna be a live service type game, which is kind of expected based on the playtest and all of this. But I do think something like this could do really well if they don't run into issues like we've seen other live service games, which has to do with content, balancing, and it not being pay to win. So a lot of questions here. We haven't even really seen like legitimate gameplay of it yet, but interesting strategy. And I think this could be something good, but we'll have to see when some of these play tests start exactly what they've come up with. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the Mario movie, but not necessarily the movie itself, but the effect that it's having on game sales for Nintendo, because we've seen this happen with other intellectual properties in different companies, like Cyberpunk. When Edge Runners came out, that blew up the sales, and Steam started hitting some high concurrent player counts. We've seen it with The Last of Us, where the series comes out and then the game spikes in overall sales, and now we're seeing it with all these different Mario games. We can see it over on the UK sales charts, first indication of game sales really after the movie had launched. And starting at the top, FIFA 23, but then look, right below that, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Jump 2 spots to the number 2. See, you guys want the next Mario Kart. Why? But it's right there, number 2. You know what? When the next system comes out, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Plus. Has a bit of a ring to it, right? Then we see below that Resident Evil 4 Remake at number 3, Hogwarts Legacy at 4. Super Mario Odyssey jumped 5 spots from 10 to 5. God of War Ragnarok, Gran Turismo 7, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Minecraft, that's on the Switch, and the new Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe jumped from 17 up into the top 10. So I don't think any of these results really surprise anyone. Seems fairly expected. You go to the movie theater, you see the Mario movie, and you go, oh yeah, I want to also now play a Mario game, whether it's tapping nostalgia or just reminding you about the IP all over again. So you see these sales spike. I'll be curious, things like the MPD, and then also in Japan, although I don't know if the movie's launched in Japan yet. I need to see the exact release date for it there. But think about that. We hear all of these sales and revenue numbers for the movie, but then Nintendo gets kind of this residual effect. And it also makes me wonder, what would have happened if they had any kind of new Mario game to go alongside with the movies? What kind of sales would we see with both of those right next to each other? Well, there's still time this year for Nintendo to release a Mario game, I guess, a 2D one or something there. And I think the Mario movie will still be in a lot of people's memories even a year from now. So interesting stuff there, but not shocking. And also wouldn't surprise me to see Nintendo continue down this path of different movies, and makes you wonder, is The Legend of Zelda next? And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, are you picking up Dead Island 2? 6% said yes, getting it ASAP. 26% say, oh, when it's on a sale. And then 69%, there you go, no, I'm not interested. You know, Dead Island 2, the thing with this game is, I don't think it's going to be on the level of Jedi Survivor, technically, I guess Redfall. Well, again, we'll see how Redfall comes out. Zelda, Final Fantasy 16, going by the wayside a little bit based on some of the people I've been talking to. They even forgot Dead Island 2 was coming out this week, but there are some interesting things going on with it, and I'll be checking it out when it releases on Friday, but I am curious what kind of Metacritic score it gets and if that will maybe push some people over the edge to reconsider and pick it up when it releases. There's a lot of stuff starting to come out, and things are really picking up for gaming. 2023, I'm telling you, I think it's going to be a year we look back on, maybe 5, 6, 7 years from now and go, wow, that was actually pretty impressive. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Gamma Blitz, says, I hope Lawbreakers comes back. Love the game. Played it on PC. I hope it comes to Xbox too. You know, that's probably something they would look back on and be like, you know, if we could do it all over again, would have made more sense to try to cast that wide net and get as many people on board, cross-play the whole deal, which is something we've been learning more and more about, really even since this game released back in, 2017 to 2018, is that you need as many monthly active users as possible, which means you target as many systems as possible. I mean, seriously, PlayStation, Xbox, hey, if you can get on the Switch, I've seen Apex Legends. It looks terrible. People still play it. So again, take advantage of every bit of the install size out there for gaming overall. So that's hopefully if they decide to do it, and it's not just like, oh, a copyright thing, we got to make sure, see who owns it, who we got to pay money to for just the phrase Lawbreakers. The game comes back, I'm hoping it has all the different logos on that end card. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was the situation with Nintendo on YouTube striking down all these Zelda mods, them going after ROM sites. They've been pretty busy, but let me know what you think about them in the courtroom there. And then also, what about Joseph Staten going to Netflix to make a new AAA intellectual property? Do you think Netflix in like 10 years could actually be a big player in the gaming space? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.